Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, finance and accounting professionals prepare to adapt and thrive in an exponentially changing world. I'm your host, Tom Hood. I'm the Executive Vice President of Business Engagement and Growth at the AICPA and CIMA, the largest global body of professional certified accountants in the world, and the only association representing both management and public accounting in the world. Joining me today, actually, is a report from our just held 30th meeting of our Future of Finance Leadership Advisory Group in our headquarters in Raleigh-Durham just last week. I'm going to share with you some of those big highlights. I'm going to start by getting out of the way. So I'm going to shrink this down so you can see the folks. Turns out I'm wearing the exact same coat, aren't I? Turns out you can see all the folks that helped us work on this. It was a deep dive, 2 days, deep dive in AI and finance. And again, this was our 30th meeting of this group. They meet every other month virtually, twice a year, once in person in our headquarters, and then they help us prepare a big Future of Finance summit every year in December. So a couple of pieces. Let's show a little bit of the highlights here. I want to mention a couple of our key thought leaders. Up in the upper left are the folks that really led the 2 days of sessions. That's Glenn Hopper, Thomas Hood. Yep, there is a relation there. Nick Scott, both from SC&H Group, and then Don Tomoff. All four of them help produce some of our learning that's available to help finance teams adapt to the fast-changing world, especially in AI and Gen AI. Upper right is Glenn Hopper doing his deep dive. By the way, he is the author of the book, AI Mastery in Finance. Highly recommend that. Bottom right is basically a picture of the sisterhood, plus Barry Payne, my wingman, and you can see Don D, who's an inaugural member of this group. But that group of ladies are among the ones that have really helped us bring the ladies' perspective into this Future of Finance group, and obviously helping us with a lot of their thought leadership. Bottom left is at the big round table in our conference room. That's when Thomas and Nick brought in Mike McGee, the VP of Finance at VaynerMedia, who did a deep dive in his implementation. And as he would say, he made a shift from being a finance professional to a finance and data or IT professional. Kind of interesting. And I think there's a bit of a future kind of premonition of where we might see ourselves going as we went through that workshop. One of the things you'll hear me say all the time is, I love this quote by Sir Isaac Newton that says, "If I can see further, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants." Well, in the association world, our giants are our members and groups that we convene. And this is the group that now going in its 5th year is called the Future of Finance Leadership Advisory Group. They've helped us evaluate our research and give us their real world perspectives. And many of these companies were in person at this meeting. In fact, we had about 55 people there. Several brought part of their finance team, but this group is really where we get all of our thought leadership. And you're going to see a white paper coming out of this meeting probably in the next couple of weeks. But I want to share some of these highlights because if you want to look at the breadth of these 2 days, you get to see kind of what we were focusing on. And as you can see, it was quite the agenda. I'm going to get out of the way here. So you can see day one on the left there, right? AI-powered financial analysis and forecasting, custom GPT development for finance teams. They covered a little bit of data privacy, obviously AI skills and development, Gen AI implementation, AI agent capabilities, prompt engineering, financial statement analysis with large language models, and a bunch of other key areas. And it was an intense 2 days hands-on workshops. Day two, we started to move into a deeper dive, and there was a good bit about enterprise data model and a concept of checking your chart of accounts versus the version of the new chart of accounts needed in an age of AI, and a bunch about the finance tech stack that was led by the SC&H duo, enterprise performance management, EPMs versus ERPs, and the idea of getting a handle on that data layer were all major topics that we covered. And obviously, all of this is in the backdrop of what we consider the key issues that are facing our finance and accounting leaders. And this is our ongoing set of skills. This we started 5 years ago, right coming out of the pandemic, when the number one issue was talent, no surprise. But pretty quickly, this idea of digital transformation started to move in, along with lots of other pieces that ebbed and flowed. So what you can see now is the latest as of 2025. But what's interesting is the need for new skills, and the emphasis is on new, upskilling and reskilling. We like to say the T-shaped professional, plus some deeper dives in data analytics, Gen AI, and AI tools like prompting, understanding how to evaluate the AI output. Those are all things that are now on our horizon. Gen AI is the second biggest issue. Interesting enough, that flew into the radar. We were reminiscing that only 2 years ago, at the meeting that we just held in Durham, that's when one of our CFOs of a major software company came flying into the meeting and said, "Oh my God, our CEO just grabbed us and said to our senior management team, we've got to pivot our whole strategy to incorporate AI." Now, and that at that point, the rest of the group that was there just gathering said, "Yeah, we're all hearing AI from our CEOs," and it just spread. And from that point on, we started to see Gen AI get more and more important in the aspect of finance and accounting. And in many cases, these leaders are leading those efforts in their companies, company-wide, not just for finance. Obviously, accelerated digital transformation. And then what's interesting is, despite tariffs and geopolitics and all the other economic uncertainties we've seen in the last year, innovation and growth basically took a top layer, which when you really think about it, ties to those top three things, right? Finance has been moving on this journey to be much more predictive and more of a value partner to the business. And so these polls are reflecting that aspiration. And interesting enough, talent became the fifth issue. And then look at where cost management and optimization. So if you're a CFO out there, you should be thinking first about, what do I need to do to get my systems more effective and efficient, implemented so that we can do more predictive analytics, so that we can help guide the company to innovation and growth. That also, by the way, follows a trend that we're seeing in CFOs being the number one internal role, moving up to the CEO spot, and a new role that's emerged, which is kind of fascinating, but it's called the COFO. So COFO is a combination, a blend, if you will, merger of COO and CFO at the right hand of the CEO. So literally, we have moved into that co-pilot role, and that means everyone below the CFO, including chief accounting officers, controllers, all the way down to the basic early entry points of our profession, are now in the process of being upskilled and reskilled to take on this more future-looking windshield view, to move us from the rearview mirror to the idea of the windshield. So that's a kind of interesting phenomenon. Obviously, we were talking about a lot of that there. Now, the other part is, this came in from the SC&H group, and we saw this at the Gartner CFO conference in May. But what happened is, where are CFOs spending their time in 2025, courtesy of Gartner? And look at those top 5 pieces, right? They kind of tie right back to all the topics we talked about in this meeting, which you'll get to see in the white paper when we get it done. But metrics, analytics, and reporting, 72%. Planning, budgeting, and forecasting, data strategy and management, AI adoption in finance, and enterprise growth strategy. And then you can see finance tech strategy, some of those other issues. But those top 5 map pretty well to what you saw those top issues at. And the question for everyone is, where are you spending your time, or what are you thinking about where you should be spending your time? Because that was a big conversation at this 30th meeting of our, we call it the FLAG group, Future of Finance Leadership Advisory Group. One more piece to talk about is this idea that SC&H came in, which really started to challenge us about how we're thinking about this whole idea of value creation. So they took our Reinventing Finance for a Digital World white paper, and they started to map it to the tech stack and where we're going. So you can see on the left, collecting information, curating it, communicating it, getting into the general ledger, making sure the transactions are right. That's the hindsight portion. That's getting automated faster and faster. Underneath of that, you can see that's the core financial accounting, recording, and control. Often that's handled by the ERP system. Then we start moving over into what we call the value creation mode. And that's where we talk about influence the organization, right? Communicating, collaborating, and ultimately creating new ways of working, new business model considerations, new ways of predicting the future for the organization. We're now in the co-pilot position, guiding the organization from that standpoint. So influence and impact are the ones we're really going after. And then, of course, that underneath is the tech stack around the enterprise performance management and the data layer. There's a whole lot about talking about data lakes or data rivers or whatever you call, which is the in-between part of ERP, EPM, and all the other applications that are helping us in finance do this predictive analytics. Big part of the conversation. At the end of the day 2, there was a whole mapping exercise so people could map their tech stacks to some of the concepts that were being talked about here. Obviously, to say where do the current finance tech stack already have AI built in that we should be leveraging, and then where do we layer on some of the other AI tools that we learned about and creating our own pieces like custom GPTs or AI agents. And even this idea of vibe coding came up. So it was a fascinating, intense 2 days. You're going to see, we're going to be incredibly happy to bring this white paper to fruition. So this is the big takeaways that we got from this. I'm going to get down here and get a little bit smaller, but the big idea that came out of this is your data foundation is critical. And that came loud and clear from Mike McGee, the Vice President of Finance at VaynerMedia. He talked about his journey of how he was implementing some of the standard ERPs and EPM pieces, and then said it suddenly hit them that without the good, clean data, we couldn't get to the AI and we couldn't leverage the heavy-duty predictive analytics we're all trying to get to. So that became a big aha of the group in 2 days. Both bottom up and top down, we got to be making sure you have what we would call citizen data people, as well as your professional IT people. So it's bottom up using your employee tools and plus the top down system integration that makes that go. Change management is paramount. This idea of fears of job displacement is very real. We see it in finance teams all of the time. And we actually do keynotes to help basically give that group, your whole finance team, a common view of the organization that can help them in understanding these trends. And when they see we call it the NASCAR map with all those logos, that's what everyone's dealing with, including the whole finance and accounting profession. Suddenly, it's not just you're making us go through this. This is where we all have to go. So keep in mind, you've got to make sure you're dealing with that mindset first, skill set second, and then tool set. Quick wins build momentum. So look for high impact, low complexity projects. It's continuous transformation. We like to say, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. That translates to you can't stop the waves of transformation, but you can get better and better at surfing or riding those waves and start to begin to maybe even enjoy it as you make a big impact in your organizations. Domain expertise is essential. AI arguments do not replace professional judgment. The human in the loop we talked a lot about, which is absolutely critical. So we believe that's going to continue to be a big part of it. Security from day one, establish your governance before you start scaling. And there was a good bit of talk about that. Measure everything, track time savings, error rates, decision quality, so that you can actually share what you're really doing with everybody from that perspective. So with that, I'm going to close out here. I want to say, again, thank you all for tuning in to this Future Ready Live. Stay tuned. We'll be publishing the white paper not too long after this. Obviously, you can follow me on LinkedIn. And I want to thank everyone for joining me. And don't miss our other Future Ready Live sessions back here on LinkedIn the first and third Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern, and we will see you then. Thank you very much for being here and listening.